The Ladder of Divine Ascent, Step 27, on blessed stillness of body and soul. We are as purchased slaves under bondage to unholy passions. Therefore we know to some degree the fancies, methods, desires, and crafts of the spirits that govern our feeble souls. But there are other people who, through the activity of the Holy Spirit, and as a consequence of their freedom from the oppression of those spirits, are very much awake to their craft. The first, being in a grievous state of illness, can only conjecture as to relief which they could have with sound health. However, the latter, being in a good condition, are capable of forming notions and reaching conclusions as to the problems of such illnesses. This is the reason why we, who are feeble and sick, pause to philosophize in our discussion about the sanctuary of solitary stillness, for we know that near the table of the good brothers there is always a hound waiting to grab a morsel of bread from it, which is a soul. Then it flees away with it in its jaw and consumes it alone. We have no desire to give room to that hound, and provide a cause to those who are seeking an opportunity. For this cause we think it unwise to speak about peace to the valiant fighters of our king who are fighting in war. We will only say that the crowns of peace and calm are forged for those who do not waver in their struggle. But we have no desire to trouble anyone by describing other things without writing about this, and so we will, if you like, speak concisely about solitude, even if only to define it. Stillness of the body is the understanding and lessening of practices and feelings. Stillness of the soul is understanding one's thoughts and inviolate mind. A companion of stillness is brave and unceasing strength of thought, which keeps a regular watch at the gateway of the heart, and kills or wards off the thoughts that come to it. He who is quiet in the deep of his heart will perceive the truth of this last statement. However, the one who is still a youth is oblivious and ignorant to it. A discriminating solitary does not need words, since he shows his words by his deeds. The start of stillness is to cast off all noise as troubling for the deep recesses of the soul, and the conclusion of it is to not be afraid of disturbances and to stay immune to them. However, when he goes out, still without a word, he is carrying and completely a household of love. He is not readily moved to talk, nor is he given to anger. The converse is clear as well. The solitary is the one who struggles to keep his spiritual state within his carnal house, as much as this is a paradox. The cat retains her grip on a mouse, and the mind of the solitary grips his spiritual mouse. A monk dwelling with another monk is not saved in the same way a lone monk would be. When a monk is living alone, he must be vigilant and not have a drifting mind. When he has company, the other one will assist his brother, but an angel helps the one who is alone. The heavenly powers gather together in worship with the one whose soul is at peace, and they stay lovingly with him. The converse of this is clear. There is a profound depth to the dogmas, and the thoughts of the solitary do not wander into them without trouble. Since it is not good to swim with one's clothes on, then one in bondage to the passions should not be involved with theology. The cell of the solitary is his body, and within it is the altar of wisdom. The one who is ill in his soul from a passion tries to live in solitude is like someone who has plunged into the ocean from a boat and imagines that he will make it to the shore securely on a piece of wood. For all those who are striving with their clay, stillness is fitting at the opportune time only if they have a good director, because the strength of an angel is required to be a solitary. I describe those who live a life of genuine stillness in both body and soul. The one living alone who is slothful will speak lies, goading people with suggestions to end his solitude for him. Then, after leaving his cell, he faults the demons. He has not realized that he is his own demon. I have observed those living alone who stoked the flame of their longing for God, kindling fire with fire, love with love, longing for longing. The one who lives alone is an earthly image of a heavenly angel, who with the paper of love and with the letters of zeal has set free his prayer from laziness and neglect. The solitary is the one who publicly announces, "O God, my heart is prepared." The solitary is the one who states, "I slumber, but my heart is alert." Close the door of your cell to your body, and the gate of your tongue to words, and the inner door to the wicked spirits. The endurance of the sailor is tried at the noontime heat, or when he is quiet, and a want of necessities tests the endurance of the solitary. When the first becomes discouraged, he swims in the water, and when the other becomes depressed, he spends time with company. Do not be afraid of boisterous trivialities, because grieving does not know timidity and is not afraid of them. Those whose mind has found sincere prayer speak with the Lord face to face, as if talking into the ear of the king. Those who use vocal prayer prostrate before him as if in the presence of the whole court. But those who dwell in the world entreat the king in the middle of the din of the multitudes. If you have discovered the practice of prayer accurately, you will understand what I have described. Make your seat on high and observe as you are able. Then you will be able to see in what way, when, and from where, how many, and what type of robbers come to take your clusters of grapes. When the watchman becomes tired, he stands erect and prays. Then he takes his seat again and bravely resumes his previous occupation. The one who has discovered this from experience desired to relate it in careful detail to others, but he was fearful that he might lessen the zeal of those who were already doing it, or that he might scare off those who were just deciding to try it by the noise of his speaking. The one who enters into delicate and erudite discussions about stillness brings demons upon himself, for there is no one else who will properly despise such perversions. The one who has achieved stillness has entered into the depths of the mysteries. However, he would not have sunk so deep unless he had first observed the tumult of the waves and the wicked spirits, and maybe even been sprayed by these waves. The excellent Apostle Paul verifies what we have described. If he had not been brought up into paradise, as into solitude, he could never have heard the unmentionable words. God will speak into the ear of the solitary wonderful words. This is the reason why in the book of Job, the ever-wise man stated, "Will not my ear hear wonderful things from him?" The solitary is the one who flees from all human company, but without enmity, in the same way that others rush to it eagerly. He desires to continue receiving the holy sweetness. Go and give away now, for to sell would take too long, all that you have, and distribute it to the poor monks, so that in their prayers they may walk with you to solitude. Take up your cross, and bear it with the aid of obedience, and strongly carry the weight of the loss of your will, and forevermore come and follow me to be joined to the most holy stillness, and I will instruct you on the manifest labors and life of the spiritual beings. They never cease to grow tired of ever glorifying their Creator, and he who ascends to the heaven of stillness never stops glorifying his Maker. Incorporeal spirits will not consider physical things, nor will those who have become incorporeal in a physical body think about nourishment. The first will not be conscious of food, and the second will need no guarantee of it. The first do not regard money or goods, and the latter do not consider the ill will of the wicked spirits. Those above in heaven have no longing for physical creation, and those here below on earth have no yearning for physical things observed by the senses. The first will never stop to progress in love, and the latter struggles with them daily. Those who are very much aware of the riches of their progress, and these regard their love of their ascent. Those will not cease until they attain the perfection of the seraphim, and these will not tire until they become angels. Blessed is the one who hopes. 3 times blessed is the one who holds the promise. However, the one that has it is an angel. In every science, as people know, there are variations in beliefs and goals, for all things are not complete, either from lack of effort or strength. Therefore, some come to this harbor, or indeed ocean, or maybe abyss, since they are unable to control their tongue, or from a past habit of the body. Still others, because they lose control of their temper, and the unfortunate souls cannot conquer this among the multitudes. Others, through pride, have decided that it is better to navigate on their own rather than with a guide. Others, in the midst of material goods, cannot keep themselves from partaking. Some desire to nurture their zealness with stillness. Others desire to torture themselves privately for their shortcomings. For some it is to attain honor. Others again, if the Son of Man should find any on earth, are joined to blessed stillness from a joyful thirst for the love and sweetness of God. But they do not attain this unity before they have removed all despair, since union with despair would be a form of adultery to one who is joined to God. As much as my feeble understanding allows, for I am as an inexperienced builder. I have built a ladder of ascent. May each one perceive on which rung he is standing. Is it self-will, or worldly honor, or feebleness of tongue, or hot anger, or too much attachment? Is it to compensate for shortcomings, or to augment ardor, or to put fire to fire? The last will be first, and the first last. The first 7 are the works of the feeble of the world, some approved, some unapproved. However, the 8th one plainly displays the seal of the coming age. Take heed, solitary monk. Be watchful at the hours when the wild creatures lurk. Otherwise you will not be capable of adjusting your traps for them. If despair which you have separated from has departed from you, then the next duty will be redundant. However, if she continues to push herself forward, then I am at a loss how you will be able to dwell in solitude. Why did the Blessed Fathers of Tabinsi not have as many luminaries as those of Skeet? Learn this, those who are able. I am unable to speak, or indeed I have no desire to. Some lessen the passions, others spend their time in psalmody or prayer, while others give themselves to meditation and spend their days in deep meditation. May the question be searched out according to the type of the latter. The one who is capable of receiving this, let him accept it in the Lord. There are lazy souls dwelling in monasteries, and by pampering those things which feed their laziness, they are completely destroyed. However, there are also souls who by means of dwelling with others divest themselves of their laziness. And the same often happens not only with the negligent, but also with the eager. We can employ the same practice for solitude, for truly many whom the solitary life has welcomed as skilled have been rejected for willfulness, condemning them for their wish to satisfy themselves. Still others who have entered this mode of life have become more earnest and eager by means of fear and concern about the judgment they will have to face. The one who remains disturbed by ill temper and pride, by hypocrisy and memory of injuries, should not risk undertaking the solitary life, lest he acquire distraction and nothing else. But if someone is free of these, he will understand what is best, and yet I suppose not even this one. Here are the marks, routes, and evidences of those who are correctly living in solitude: an untroubled mind, pure and holy thoughts, rapture to the Lord, remembrance of eternal punishments, the quickness of death, ceaseless desire for prayer, unsleeping watchfulness, a loss of lust, ignorance of attachment, a departure from the world, the passing of gluttony, a certain knowledge of the divine, a spring of discernment, peace with tears, the passing of chattiness, and many other similar things which normal people are likely to think strange. These are the marks of those who are living the solitary life incorrectly: lack of spiritual treasures, a growth of anger, a storehouse of resentment, a loss of love, an increase in vanity. I will refrain elaborating on the rest which follow. However, our section has now come to the point where we must ponder the case of those dwelling in obedience, all the more because this section is mostly intended for them. The marks of those who are legally, chastely, and truly bound to this regular and true obedience, both in truth and by the teaching of the inspired fathers, are these. And each day, if only we have hallowed a day to the Lord, they will push forward and progress so that they will be perfect in their time. A growth of basic humility, a reduction of anger, for how is it able not to lessen since the bile is spent? Dispersion of gloom, entry of love, alienation from the passions, rescue from malice, lessening of lust through regular examination, ignorance of depression, growth of zeal, sympathetic love, exile of pride. This is the prize which everyone should pursue, but few reach. A spring without water should not be honored with the name. And what follows, he who is capable of thinking already understands. A new wife who has not been true to her wedding vows has corrupted her body, and a soul that has not been true to its oath has polluted its spirit. Rebukes, malice, beatings, and most despised of all, estrangement will occur with the first. The other will have to put up with corruption, forgetting death, an insatiable belly, loss of control of the eyes, laboring for honor, yearning for sleep, stiffening of the heart, numbness and a feeling of being dead, rapid growth of evil thoughts and a desire to permit them, hostage of the heart, troubling of spirit, being unruly, contradicting, attachment, lack of faith, skepticism, chattiness, and perhaps the worst, regular familiarity, and still worse, a heart without remorse, which, in the careless, is followed by apathy, the mother of demons and stumbles. Of the 8 wicked spirits, 5 attack those in solitude, and 3 go after those under obedience. The one who lives in solitude and battles depression often suffers ill, because he spends time which would be better spent in prayer and meditation, trying to figure out ways of struggling against it. One time, becoming lazy, I was in my cell and pondering leaving it. However, some people arrived and started to honor me for my solitary life, and immediately the thought of laziness gave way to pride. I was astonished how this 3-horned demon resists the other spirits. Watch every hour the blows and straps, the desires and changes of your comrade, the spirit of despair, and observe how and where they are leading. He who has attained peace through the Holy Spirit is accustomed to this scene. The initial duty of solitude is the separation from all busyness, if it is honorable or not, for he who permits even honorable ones will surely allow those which are not. The second duty of solitude is sincere prayer. The third is hallowed working of the heart. It is certainly impossible for one who has not learned the alphabet to read books. It is also impossible for the one who has not achieved the first to attain the last 2. Involved in the middle duty, I was among the middle ranks, and an angel enlightened me, thirsting as I was. Again, I was with them, and I inquired what exactly was the Lord prior to him taking on manifest form. The angel unable to tell me because he was not permitted. So I inquired, what state is he now in? He answered, in the state that is fitting to him, and not in our state. I inquired, what does it mean, the standing and sitting at the right hand of the Father? He answered, it is impossible to understand these mysteries through human hearing. I urged him to lead me where my yearnings pulled me, and he told me, the hour has not yet come, because not yet does the fire of incorruption burn strongly within you. If at that time I was on this earth, I do not know, or out of it, I cannot tell. It is troublesome to conquer the noonday nap, particularly during the summer. At that time, and perhaps only then, is physical work allowed. In my experience, the demon of despair readies and sets the path for the demon of lust, so that by forcibly enfeebling the mind and pushing it into sleep, the latter may create corruptions in those exercising solitude through a realistic dream. If you withstand these demons strongly, then they will surely start a harsh assault on you to make you cease your labor for the lack of your progress. But there is no greater evidence that we are beating the demons than that they furiously assault us. When you leave solitude, protect what you have attained. When a cage has been opened, birds will fly away, and then we will achieve no further profit from solitude. A tiny hair troubles the eye, and a small concern destroys solitude, for solitude is the exile of thoughts and notions, and the denial of every honorable concern. The one who has truly achieved solitude does not think about his body, for he who vowed will not be untrue. He who desires to offer his mind chaste to God and is disturbed by concerns is as a man who has bound his legs closely together and then believes he can run freely. Those who are knowledgeable about worldly philosophy are truly rare, but I assert that those who are well versed in divine philosophy of true stillness are even more rare. The one who has never truly known God is not ready for solitude and exposes himself to many problems. Solitude suffocates the inexperienced, who, having not tasted the sweetness of God, loses their time in being held hostage, robbed, becoming depressed, and in general being governed by the passions. The one who has experienced the benefits of prayer will eschew the multitudes like a wild donkey, because, if not for prayer, what makes him different than a wild donkey who is free from the association with people? The one who is held by the passions and dwells in the desert lets his mind attend to their talking. So the holy elder, George Arceletes, who is not completely unknown to your blessedness, at one time described and instructed me, for he once instructed my useless soul and guided me to solitude. He said, I have perceived that early in the day is the normal time for the demons of pride and lust to make their attack. At noon it is the demons of despair, regret, and anger, and in the evening it is those lovers of dung, the miserable belly. It is better to dwell in a community in poverty and obedience than to be a solitary who has lost his mind. The one who has arrived at the solitary life properly, and yet does not see its merit daily, is either doing it in the wrong way or is being robbed of it by his self-respect. Solitude is unending worship and waiting for God. Let the memory of Jesus be present with each breath, and then you will realize the benefit of stillness. For a monk who is under obedience, willfulness is a fall, but for the solitary it is a break in praying. If you delight in having guests visit your cell, understand that you are not taking a break from depression only, but also from God. The example of your prayer life should be the widow who was wronged by her foe, and for your stillness, the excellent angelic Arsenius the solitary. Recall in your stillness the life of the excellent solitary, and see how many times he repelled those who came to him, so that he would not lose the better part. My experience has shown me that the demons often compel foolish pleasure seekers to visit those dwelling in solitude on the right path, so that they may put a deterrent in the path of those men. Watch out for such ones, and do not be timid about offending those idle busybodies through your pious behavior, because as a consequence of this insult, maybe they will cease from roaming around. But watch that you do not accidentally insult someone who on account of his thirst has journeyed to find water from you. Each case requires the light of discernment. The life of those exercising solitude, and in particular those who are very much alone, should be led both by the conscience and common sense. The one who runs his race properly and does all his tasks, speaking, thoughts, steps, purposes and motions in agreement with the Lord, labors for the Lord's sake with spiritual zeal, as though he were in the presence of the Lord. If he is plundered, he has not discovered how to live the practice of virtue. I will illustrate, says one, my proposal and my will on the harp, consonant with my ever faulty judgment. As for me, I will give my will to God in prayer, and from him I will obtain assurance. Faith is the wing of prayer. Lacking faith, my prayer will come back to my bosom. Faith is a firm resoluteness of the soul, unwavering through any trouble. A believer is not one who supposes that God can do all things, but one who trusts that he will receive all things. Faith makes way for what looks impossible. The thief showed this clearly. The mother of faith is long-suffering and a sincere heart. The latter makes faith firm, and the first strengthens it. Faith is the mother of stillness. For if one does not believe, how is he able to exercise stillness? The one who is confined in jail is afraid of the judge who condemned him, but the solitary in his cell bears the fear of the Lord, and the court is not so horrifying for the first as the judgment seat of the judge is to the latter. You must have great fear for the solitary life, good man, because nothing is so powerful in driving away despair. The condemned man is always watching to see when the judge will arrive at the prison, and the sincere worker ponders when the angel of death will arrive. The weight of grief oppresses the first, but the latter has a spring of tears. Bring forth the rod of endurance, and the hounds will quickly cease their misbehavior. Endurance is the toil that does not squash the soul and never falters with distractions, honorable or not. The long-suffering man is a flawless laborer who changes his flaws into victories. Long-suffering is the limit of toil that is tolerated each day. Long-suffering puts aside every pretext and all regard for herself. The laborer needs long-suffering more than food, because the one earns him a crown, while the other might bring him about destruction. The long-suffering man has died long before he is put in his grave, having already made a grave out of his cell. Hope gives birth to long-suffering, and so does lamentation, but the one who has neither is a slave to despair. Christ's soldiers should understand what enemies to fend off from afar, and which ones attack at close range. At times the struggle merits a crown, but at other times declining has made men depraved. It is not possible to give instructions on such affairs, for we all have different dispositions and traits. There is one particular spirit which you should carefully watch for. It is the one who assaults you without interruption while you stand, walk, sit, move, rise, pray, and sleep. Not every loaf made from the heavenly wheat of this spiritual food has the same form. Some people in the pasture of stillness have always carried this thought with them: I behold the Lord always before me. But others, in your long suffering, you will save your souls. Still others, keep vigil and pray. Others, ready your deeds for your death. Yet others, I was humbled and he rescued me. Others, the pains of the present life are not worth being compared to the future glory. And still others regularly have the following words in their thoughts: lest he seize you and there be no one to save you. Because everyone runs, but no one obtains the prize without trying. The one who advances strives not only when awake, but also when he is asleep. Then even when sleeping, some strike down the demons who come to them and rebuke immoral women concerning the issue of purity. However, do not anticipate visits, and do not make ready for them ahead of time, because solitude is pure and free. No one desiring to construct a tower and cell of solitude will start this labor without first setting down and reckoning the costs. And he does this by means of prayer, contemplating within himself if he has enough resources to finish it, so that he does not build a foundation and then be a joke to his foes and a hindrance to other laborers. Study the sweetness which you feel within your soul, lest it be used for corrupt ends by evil doctors, or indeed crafty ones. Assign the majority of the night to prayer, and only what remains to the Psalter. Then during the day ready yourself according to your ability. Reading greatly enlightens the mind and assists it in focusing, for such words are those of the Holy Spirit, and they correct those who concentrate on them. May the things you read push you to activity, for you are active. Continued reading becomes unnecessary as these words are put into practice. Undertake to be enlightened through the words of salvation by your efforts, and do not simply from books. Until you obtain spiritual strength, do not examine works that are metaphorical, because they are dim, gloomy words, and they cloud the feeble. A single cup of wine is enough to expose its flavor, and one word from a solitary reveals to those who can taste it his entire inner disposition and labor. May the eye of your soul be steadfastly fixed in opposition to pride or self-respect, because nothing is so ruinous. When you depart from your cell, be liberal with your tongue, for it can disperse in an instant the fruits of much work. Attempt to forget intrusiveness and curiosity, because they can ruin solitude like nothing else. Provide for those who visit you with what is essential both for their body and spirit. If they are more learned than us, let us display our philosophy by our silence. And if they are brothers who abide in the same manner of life, may we open the door of works to them in fitting degrees. Still it is best to consider everyone as above us. My desire was to prohibit all manual work from being done by those who are still children during the church services, but the one who bore sand all night in his garments forbade me. What is given as the dogma of the holy, uncreated, and honorable Trinity contrasts with the dogma of the providential incarnation of one of the persons of this all-hymned Trinity, because what is plural in the Trinity is singular in him, for what there is singular is here plural. In the same manner, some practices of life are fitting for a solitary, and others for those under obedience. The Holy Apostle stated, "Who has known the mind of the Lord?" I will state, "Who has known the mind of the man who dwells in stillness in both body and spirit?" The strength of a king is his wealth and the multitude of his servants. The strength of a solitary is the abundance of his prayers.